have Amtrak trains at 8:30, so we get the speaker done and questions. Everything is wrapped for the speaker and the questions at 8:10, so the Amtrak folks don't miss their train. Palmdale to Los Angeles high-speed rail team. They've been working on developing how the service will go along the corridor from Palmdale to Los Angeles. And tonight we have Steve Portman. And you're going to talk about that. And it's
back here. I guess we've been here at least 2 or 3 times in the last 6 or 8 months that I know of. So rather than try and fit our PowerPoint projector up and show you some of the same images that I think most of you have seen at least 2 times that I'm aware of, maybe 3 or 4 times, I thought what I'd do is give you a brief update and then engage you in a conversation and maybe spend more time answering questions and certainly meet the 8 o'clock deadline that we've got. Ben, what is our schedule for our open house? We started our second round of open house meetings where we go out into the community soliciting feedback. Ben mentioned that he's with Consensus 8. They're our outreach firm. We had our first in our sort of second series of outreach meetings last night in Palmdale. And we had a great, even though we were up against the Beach Boys and the Antelope Valley Fair, we had a great turnout last night in Palmdale. So we had our first meeting last night in Palmdale. Tomorrow night is...
actually, these green cards that I passed out, these are actually the open houses that we have left this week. We have one tomorrow, 6:30 to 8:30 up in Burbank at the one of the library. And then Thursday, August 26th, we have one at the Santa Clarita Sports Complex. As well, we're having a more specific downtown open house sometime in September. So we'll be spending.
And that might be one that a number of your folks would be particularly keen on attending. That's September, is it the 21st or the 23rd?
21st.
21st. I think at like 5 o'clock to about 8 p.m. where we're going to really get to the rub of what has been perhaps the most challenging part, or among the most challenging parts of the section that we're working on from Palmdale to LA. And it also holds true for the Anaheim to LA folks, and it also holds true for the San Diego to LA folks, and that's egress to and from Union Station. So there's going to be a specific meeting just for that. So I think anyone interested in architecture, urban planning, service planning, that might be a very interesting meeting to attend. So the reason we're having this series of outreach meetings in the different communities is to share where we are headed with regards to the alternatives analysis process. Many of you know about a year ago we started the AA process that will lead into the environmental process. We're about at a place where we're going to wrap up the alternatives analysis and make a presentation to the California High-Speed Rail Authority Board in October on what we think the most viable alternatives for moving through the environmental document will be. We started out with 4 or 5 different alignment options. We've looked at 12 or 14 different station options throughout the sections of downtown through the San Fernando Valley on up to Palmdale. And we're down to a place where we think we've got 1 or 2 alignments in San Fernando Valley that we would recommend studying. 4 alignments through the mountains from roughly Santa Clarita on up to Palmdale, and then 2 alignments in Palmdale itself. And as a function of that reduction in alignments, we're down to 7 station options, 5 in the valley and 2 in Palmdale. We hope to get to a place with the board in the next month before as part of the October presentation on the alternatives analysis, where we limit the 4 stations or the 5 station options we have in San Fernando Valley down to about 2. So that we're looking at maybe 2 or 3 stations in the valley and the 2 in Palmdale, and maybe 2 alignment options as well. Some of this you guys have heard before. We're essentially on track with some of the information that we provided you when we were here, I guess maybe 3 months ago.
it was about 6 actually.
It was
February or March.
Was it that long ago?
Yeah, amazingly enough. Yeah.
Time flies when you're having fun.
I actually timed it so it's every 6 months. It was a year ago and 6
Really?
months ago. Yeah.
Well, it seems like just yesterday. Anyway.
Now you can plan ahead.
Yeah, now we can plan ahead indeed. So we are at a place, we shared all of this information with you 6 months ago. We're at a place now where we fine-tuned some of it. We feel comfortable sharing it with the authority board. We feel comfortable that they'll be in a place in October, at the October meeting, where they can give us feedback on what we're recommending to them. And get to a place where we're narrowing down the alternatives so that we can start into the environmental, the real substantive environmental document, so that this time next year, when we're out here again talking to everybody, we're talking about an administrative draft environmental impact report that is getting us closer and closer to, delivering the beginnings or the makings of a real project. So we view this year coming up, and by year I mean this state fiscal year, that started July 1st, even though we don't have a budget yet. And assuming the state ever does get around to approving a budget, we can actually get paid to do our work again. We anticipate that this year, from now until about this time next year, will be when this project turns from sort of gleam in the eye into a real project, because we'll have worked our way through the environmental document, assuming that we get the feedback and support that we're anticipating. We will have a document that then is ready to be turned over to the engineers to finalize design and get out for begin anticipating how we might actually build this thing and be in a position to start breaking ground, if all goes according to plan, sometime in 2014 or as early as 2014. So the big issue coming up for us is September 23rd. I don't know why I keep wanting to say 23rd. The Union Station meeting. It is the 21st, September 21st. Because figuring out how we get north, how we get out of Union Station and quickly get underneath the parks. The state parks has been a bit of a challenge for us. And we've had some very positive meetings in recent weeks with the state parks people, with the city of Los Angeles, and others that suggest to us that the alternatives that we've come up with for leaving Union Station are getting more and more doable and feel like they're something we can begin to hang our hat on technically from an engineering standpoint. And that's been a big challenge. And you'll hear a lot more about that on the 21st. So that's a big meeting. And then once the state budget gets approved, our program for the fiscal year, beginning and completing the environmental document, has already been approved by the High-Speed Rail Authority staff. All we're waiting for is the broader state budget to be approved. Once that's done, our budget within the high-speed rail project has already been approved for the coming fiscal year. We just can't draw down on that until the overall state budget is approved. So once the state budget is passed, we're ready to hit the ground running and really ramp up for the environmental process for the rest of the calendar, the rest of the fiscal year. And presumably, we'll be in a place this time a year from now where we're back reporting that we actually have a real project. So this is a very critical year for turning this plan into something really, really substantive, and we're guardedly optimistic that we think we can do that. So with that, as I mentioned earlier, I prefer to spend as much time as possible engaging with you with questions and comments and sort of having an interactive conversation here. With that, I'll curtail my remarks and let's open it up for questions. Yes, sir?
I think every time they ask the question about FRA compliant cars or not, and now
Could you explain that before we get in? Not everybody may know what FRA compliant vehicles are, so when you answer the question, could you encompass that part of the answer too?
The FRA is the Federal Railroad Administration. Up until very recently, and I believe I'm probably as guilty as anybody is saying, heck no, and no, that they've never allowed it before and they'll never allow it again. If you're going to operate railroads,